This is my first craft one-step, and it's already not my last one. Let's check out Hot Buttered Soul from Isaac Hayes. Extremely excited for this release. This is one of the very few craft one-steps out there that is for a soul record. It's really one of the very few one-steps out there that I ever see for a soul record. There's like a couple of Sam Cooke records that are on 45 from Analog Productions, but I don't think those are one-steps, and I don't even know if it really matters that it's a one-step. I just really like the fact that these are audiophile reissues of awesome, really important soul music, as we're gonna get into with this record. I got this copy from Acoustic Sounds. Now, you don't have to get yours from Acoustic Sounds. You could get it directly from Craft, or you can get it from anywhere, but I would definitely suggest, if you're gonna get these more expensive records, to go with someone who will handle a return situation if this record shows up damaged. Because the last thing you want is to buy one of these $100 plus records and then you get it at home and there's something wrong with it and then you can't send it back, because I do know certain of these companies out there are very, very hard to get a hold of directly. So I think it's better to actually go with a distributor like Acoustic Sounds in this situation. Apparently there have been a lot of quality control issues with these craft one-steps. I've heard a lot of issues, and I saw a review from The Pressing Matters, which is a fantastic channel that you should check out, by the way. He talked about his Miles Davis quintet, and it came in with a giant scratch right across the cover, so that was horrible. That has not been the case for me. This is the first craft one-step that I've ever bought, and this one is pretty flawless to me, both the cover and the record itself. So let's get into everything that you get with this. The first thing right off the bat with these is the box. Some people really like these craft one-step boxes. Some people really hate them. Some like the fact that they're thin, and some don't like them at all. My opinion on these is I really love them. I think they're very premium. They have a really awesome texture to them. They have this really cool pull-out ribbon here that allows you to easily get to the booklet and the cover. We'll get to more on that in a little bit later. And also you can see here it's numbered. And it's got this glossy little version of the covers here. They do this for all of them. A lot of people don't like it. I've seen some people complain that it looks cheap or whatever. I think that this is really nice. You got this ribbon that pulls out here, and that pulls out the actual cover itself, which we will talk about in a minute. And then we also have the booklet. The booklet is very nice. It has all of the pictures here on the inside of the tape, and all of the analog tape and a lot of the write-up of the record itself, which is very, very cool. Here is the jacket. The jacket is probably my only, I would say, slight complaint on this whole thing. I mean, it is a pretty nice cardboard jacket, but I have felt more premium jackets from Vinyl Me Please on a $38 record of the month. This is not that bad. It is a tip-on jacket, as you can see here. It is a tip-on jacket, and so that's cool. But if I were to see this just as the jacket out in a record store, I would just think that this is just a standard reissue. I wouldn't think that there was anything special about this. It's not super thick. It's just not really what I expected. And the other thing that was weird too was when I pulled it out for the very first time, this is also shrink wrapped as well. And that kind of almost gave like a little bit of a cheaper vibe to it. I don't know why. Maybe I'm used to opening all the UHQRs and they come with these really nice plastic sleeves, and also the record's not stored in the jacket with the UHQRs, which could probably help with a lot of quality control issues with shipping. I will say that everything arrived perfectly fine with this, and this cover is immaculate, so that's great. And that is something that you would never be able to get from an original copy if you were to try to find this. I do really like the ribbon. It is a nice touch, and it's nice that you can just pull it out and it pulls the record out very nicely. But again, I don't keep it in the sleeve anyway, so I'll never use it. The vinyl itself is 180 gram Neotech VR900, which is the same compound that they use in the super vinyl for MoFi one-steps. And apparently, according to Mike from the In-Groove at Phoenix, Arizona, that is the best quality vinyl that is out today. It's even apparently better than the UHQR Clarity vinyl. So take that for what it's worth. Being a record store owner, I would imagine that he would come across a lot of that stuff too and have a pretty good knowledge on this. So I take him at his word for it that it's probably better. One thing that's pretty cool about the super vinyl that comes on these is it is actually translucent, but you can only see that if you hold it up to the light. If you look at the record itself, it looks like a normal black record, but if you hold it up to the light, you can actually see that it's semi-translucent, which is very cool. So if you're ever out in the wild, again, this is a good thing to know about records, that if you ever come across super vinyl or someone claiming that it's super vinyl, definitely look at it up in the light to see if you can see through the record. let's talk a little bit about what exactly a one-step is, because I wasn't even really sure what exactly a one-step is. A one-step is when it goes from the lacquer to the stamper to the vinyl. Whereas it normally would go from the lacquer to a mother to a father to the stamper to the vinyl. Now, what's weird is in both cases, I feel like there's a 3-step process and then a 5-step process. So they're really only counting the steps in the middle. They're not counting like the lacquer or the final vinyl, I guess, as a process, as a step. I'm not really sure, but either way, it's a little confusing. And what it says it's supposed to do is it's supposed to reveal more detail in the music and dramatically reduce the noise floor. So you're supposed to have like the quietest vinyl out there, and it's supposed to be dramatically better for all the sonic awesomeness that you want from your records. I can say that listening to this record, it sounds amazing. And it also sounds amazing on UHQR records too. I've also gotten some regular 45 records that sound amazing also. I've gotten some regular 33 records that sound amazing, and they weren't one-steps either. So when it comes to this whole one-step thing, I don't really know if I'm like sold on whether or not an actual one-step is a better, version or not. But what I do know is the mastering has a lot to do with that. The pressing has a lot to do with it. And Kraft seems to be taking a lot of care in making these and making them a pretty awesome product. And they're selecting really good records, in my opinion, like Miles Davis and now this one. I think they've also done John Coltrane and Vince Guaraldi Trio and some other ones out there. But again, I'm very happy that they got into a soul record at this point, especially a very important soul record. So let's actually talk about the most important thing with this record, which is actually the music. This record was recorded in 1969, and it came out on the Stax imprint label Enterprise Records. Apparently back then there was a thing with radio stations where they could only play a number of record labels per day. So record labels would make all these different imprints so that they can keep their artists being played all day long. I'm not sure if that's exactly the case as to why Enterprise started for Stax, but what I can say is in 1969, this was a whole kind of turning point for Stax Records, because Atlantic Records was actually bought by Warner Brothers at the time, or at least there was some partnerships there, and as a result, Stax's entire back catalog became owned by Atlantic Records at this point. So this is everything from Sam and Dave and Otis Redding and Rufus Thomas and all that stuff. So basically Stax kind of had nothing at this point. So Al Bell, who is the vice president at the time of Stax Records, basically turns on everybody onto the label and is like, guys, if you know how to write something, we need to release a record. And that was kind of where Isaac Hayes comes in, because at the time he had only released one record presenting Isaac Hayes, and it wasn't that well received. And in fact, it was heavily produced by Al Bell, and Isaac Hayes kind of had like a little bit of a, sour feeling about it, and was kind of falling back into being more of a songwriter and a behind the scenes kind of guy, maybe an instrumentalist on some of these tracks and stuff like that. So he wasn't really a front man at this point. So when they came to him and said, look, man, we need some kind of new record here, he was like, I'll make this record, but I want full, complete creative control if I get this. And so he created this masterpiece, and the backing group on this is the Bar-Kays, along with Marvell Thomas, who is actually Rufus Thomas's son. He plays piano and also co-produces this record. A lot of this record is not what you would call at the time like radio friendly music. I mean, there's an 18-minute track on here. The Walk On By track, which is a cover of Burt Bacharach, Walk On By, is a 12-minute version of it, and it is awesome. I mean, if you've never heard it, it's so good. It's got such a great groove to it. I'm a huge fan of the group L. Michaels Affair. If you've never heard of them, I'm going to be talking about them on a future video, but they have an awesome tribute to Isaac Hayes EP, and they cover Walk On By. So good, such a fantastic version of it. But this version on this record, the guitar, the fuzziness of the guitar on the whole entire track is just so haunting and so awesome. It's so far outside of the speakers as well on this record. It's just got a great separation. And this entire record goes a lot, from very soft moments to really, really loud moments with the orchestral stuff. When this record first came out, it was actually critically dubbed as like one of the first symphonic soul albums. And you can hear that. And this, it's interesting to talk about this record in 2024 because we're so preconditioned to hearing so many things that came after and that were influenced by this record that you don't realize the influence of Isaac Hayes and how much he put out there for people. He's playing organ on this record too, which is really, really awesome. And a lot of this is just him riffing. There's an 18-minute version of By the Time I Get to Phoenix, which was a Glenn Campbell song, I believe, or at least was written for Glenn Campbell. And he just turns it into a gospel masterpiece. It just feels like you're at a gospel church just listening to this story. He like adds an entire story to the song before the song even starts. And then the song just goes from just like droning organ and bass to this grand orchestration with these beautiful trumpet parts that come out of nowhere, and they sound amazing on this pressing. Like, I like to turn it up really, really loud, and this super vinyl really handles it really well, and none of the trumpets distort, none of that entire section distorts, and it's very close because you can even hear on the tape that things were getting pushed pretty hard at that point, but it sounds awesome on this record. And like I said, this record goes on to influence so many other amazing soul records that come after it. Some of the people that work on this record later go on to work for Motown, and they go and produce What's Going On from Marvin Gaye. A lot of the production and style of this goes on to inspire Barry White in the mid to late 70s. So there's just so much that this record has provided to the world of soul music, and that's why I'm extremely, extremely grateful that we have a craft one step of it now. This should be a record that's preserved in this kind of an awesome format. Now, my introduction to Isaac Hayes was actually from the Wayans Brothers movie, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Let me get one.
Right on. One order. One order ribs.
No. One rib.
One rib.
I sure am hungry.
$1.
You got change for 100?
Look, we're gonna need an orthopedic surgeon to remove my foot from your ass.
And then later, as the chef on South Park,
shovel that snow, baby. It's all nice, heavy, and wet.
And he was awesome in both of those situations, but I never realized like how amazing of a performer and a musician and how influential he was back in the 60s and 70s when he was coming out with these records. And this record, probably next to his other record, Black Moses, are his two most influential in the soul music world. Someone had mentioned in one of my previous videos in the comments when we were talking about Booker T and the MGs that there was a lot of heavy stuff going on with the Stax label, and especially with Isaac Hayes and all this stuff going on at the time. And so like this record is kind of like the culmination of that strife and triumph and struggle and whatever it is, if you will. This is it right here, and it's really, really good. The strings on this record and the orchestration on this record and the sound of the strings and orchestration on this pressing are phenomenal. Now, I've never heard an original pressing of this. I've never actually heard this on vinyl before. This is my first time ever hearing this record on vinyl. I have heard Walk On By before plenty of times, but I've never heard all four of these tracks in their entirety. And I think it's a really important thing. I feel like a lot of the music that I was introduced to, especially from bands like Queen or Bruce Springsteen or even Isaac Hayes or like Aretha Franklin and stuff like that, I'm always getting the best ofs, or I'm getting like the single or the track that's played a million times on the radio. And I find that those tracks, like even Walk On By, like I've heard Walk On By a ton of times, but to hear it in context on this record makes it sound so much different. Like I remember hearing We Are the Champions, one of the first times I ever heard that on vinyl in the context of the record, and it was like hearing a completely different song. So I really, really highly recommend going out and getting this record on vinyl. You don't have to go out and get the craft one step. Go out and get some version of this. If you can find an original copy, do it. There are original copies out there that aren't that expensive, and I wanted to get one just to do a comparison with this record, but I find that with these older records, especially these older 70s records, man, they got played a lot. So it's hard to find good quality versions of these. You're hardly ever going to find a good version of the cover or the jacket itself, so finding the vinyl in perfect condition is hard enough. There's a great channel out there, Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Definitely go check him out. I'm going to link to his review of this record. He knows a lot more about this record from the artist standpoint, and he also has a 1977 pressing of this, and he was able to do a good comparison of it. So definitely go check out his review of that if you want to see this compared to an OG or an older pressing of it. But I can say, if you're interested in this, definitely go get it. Now, they do refer to these as small batch craft one steps, and that's because there's only 3,000 copies of this that are getting it pressed. And I can say that for a record of this magnitude to only have 3,000 copies, it's probably going to sell out pretty quickly. So I would definitely try to get your hands on this if you are interested in getting a craft one step, or if you're interested in getting this specific one step. Definitely don't waste your time on getting it. Go out and get it today. I know that with these one steps and things like that, that if they're below 5,000 copies, they're going to be worth a lot of money down the road. Now, that is not why I got this. So let's talk about why I personally got this record. A lot of the things from this record later went on to inspire so many other amazing, amazing soul records. And so, I mean, this is a very, very important one to have. And I want to support the fact that they're putting soul music onto these craft one steps. So that's why I got it. Thank you to Kraft for making this record. I am very glad that we have a very awesome, influential soul record as a Kraft one step. I hope that they do more of these in the future. I hope that maybe we get some UHQR versions of these soul records as well. I mean, I would love to see a Sam Cooke or an Aretha Franklin record or a James Brown record. That would be awesome. Let me know in the comments below what soul artists you would like to see either on a one step or a UHQR, or even just a really awesome 45 pressing or something like that from Analog Productions or from Kraft. They do a lot of other awesome AAA masters as well. So they're doing a lot of really great things. I would highly suggest going to check out craftrecordings.com and go check out any of the vinyl there. Again, this is not a sponsored video by them. I paid for this stuff painfully with my own money, and I also have the next ones coming in as well. I am slowly one-stepping my way to the poorhouse as we go with these. Hopefully you enjoy these videos. If you do enjoy them, you're probably gonna like some other videos like these ones here on the channel that are all about different vinyl records or vinyl record accessories. I'm gonna go listen to this Isaac Hayes one step. I will see you guys on the next one.